Thank you for joining Jewish National Fund USA's weekly briefing. It is day 117 of the war in Israel. I am Lizerbram, president of Jewish National Fund USA. Our first guest today is Thomas Hand, father of 9-year-old Emily Hand, who was kidnapped from Kibbutz Be'eri and released 50 days later. Thomas, we cannot imagine how surreal this must be for you. We grieved with you when you were the father saying that when it comes to Hamas, death is better than captivity. We grieved with you when you learned that dear Emily was in fact not a victim of October 7, but rather your worst fear come to life, a hostage. And we rejoiced with you when you were reunited with Emily after 50 days in captivity. While our hearts remain with the over 130 hostages still in Gaza, and we keep all of the families in our prayers, we're so grateful to see you as a reunited family. Thomas, we want to hear your and Emily's story. We want to hear how Emily is doing, and we want to hear what's next for your family. Thomas, please.
It was a miracle that we got her back. Very fortunate. Unlike, like you say, over 100 still in there. You can imagine how many people that affects. Parents, brothers, sisters, close friends, family and friends in general. That's a lot of people. A lot of people affected by 139 people held hostage. For us, the nightmare is over, but for everybody else, it's a long, continuous nightmare. You're always hoping for some news. You're worried every day of other news. You just pray and hope for as much as you can. A few days on the 4th. On the 4th, I'm off to Washington with a delegation to try and help and promote and push to help the hostages, put pressure on governments, agencies, organizations, anywhere we can push, we're pushing. Have you got any questions that you'd like particularly answered?
Well, I think we really want to hear how Emily is doing. Is she attending school? Where, just a little bit about.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously we received quite a broken little child. Like I say, 50 days in the hands of those terrorists is not pleasant for anyone, never mind an 8-year-old child. Terrified most of the time, hungry all the time, thirsty a lot of the time, dirty, filthy. They had no showers for 50 days. They were given a bowl of lukewarm water and a rag. We call it a cat's lick. It was awful. They had to be very, very, very quiet, like no talking above a whisper, or they would be threatened literally with a knife. Be quiet, uskut, as they say in Arabic, uskut, or we will kill you with this knife. To children, women, nice. But she survived it. She got out. We were very, very grateful to everyone involved that helped. It took a while, a few days, maybe a couple of weeks for her voice to come back, because she was still afraid to raise her voice in the slightest. She's not full volume yet, but she's getting close. She plays a lot now. We bring her to lots of therapies in lots of different ways to help her. Horses, she lost all her power, all her control, all her confidence. So we're bringing her horse riding. If you can imagine, you're sitting on this massive beast, and you're controlling it. It sort of raises you up, raises your confidence again. Lots and lots of other stuff. Singing again to help her project her voice a bit more now. Acting, all things to just build her up, let's say. But even with all that, she's doing amazingly well. We couldn't have hoped or imagined that she would be recovering this quickly. Children, they're so resilient. It's unbelievable. Like, I think of them as a balloon, and after going through all this, throw the balloon to the floor, it will either bounce or burst. Well, thankfully she didn't burst. She's bounced right back up. Amazing. She's a very, very strong character, and always has been. She had a very tragic life. She already lost her mother when she was 2.5. She's learned to cope with adversity and tragedy.
Well, unfortunately, she's grown up way too early and had too many life experiences. Does she ask at all about the remaining hostages? Does she speak about that at all?
Sorry, again, please?
Does she ask about the remaining hostages? Does she ask about how they're doing, or refer to them at all?
Yeah, she asks. She was she was in a group of 5. There was her friend Hila that she went to stay over with one night. Hila's mother, Raya, and 2 other hostages. One other from the kibbutz, Itai, and the Asian girl, Noah. And they were together from the day of capture until they released Emily and Hila together. And I was in one interview recently, and Emily was with me, and I actually got the news that way that they killed Yossi, who wasn't in her group at all, but they must have collected him up from somewhere, made their little group a little bit bigger. Itai, Yossi Sharabi, and Noah. And then, unfortunately, Yossi's gone, for sure. And Itai is also gone. Out of Emily's group, there's only Noah. And she would love to see her again.
And is Emily back in school and interacting with her friends, or what's that status?
Right. She's not back at school. We are refugees still, and we will be for many years. I don't know where I'm going to be in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. So I don't want to keep putting her in a school, making new friends, breaking her away from that. It's unstable. It's not good for her. So she gets Zoom at the moment, plus all the activity therapies that we do with her. And every second weekend, we go down to the Dead Sea, where all the Kibbutz Be'eri is based. It's Hotel David. It's a fantastic place. They've accepted us with open arms. Even the dogs are roaming around in a five-star hotel. But that's where Emily gets to meet her friends from the kibbutz. We've got to keep contact with them, otherwise, the relationships and friendships will just drift apart. The other friends from school, she does see periodically on, but it's very hard to try and coordinate a class that's scattered all over the country.
And just tell us a little bit about this delegation you're part of, and
everyone's doing the best that they can. Right. The delegation is organized by the Knesset. It's very recent news. It's happening quite fast. I don't even have an itinerary of what we're going to do or who we're going to see yet. I just have an itinerary for the plane journey. So I know I'm going on the 4th, and that's about it, really.
Now, is Emily joining you on that delegation, or is it just adults?
I was initially going to bring her because at the beginning it seemed like it was just going to be the Senate and Congress and maybe 1 or 2 interviews here and there. But that was before I saw any itinerary at all, and I still haven't seen an itinerary. But verbally over the phone, when I was speaking to them, they said it's going to be packed. There's going to be all political meetings. There's going to be many, many interviews, and they're literally packing they want us to speak to as many people as possible. Now, the great thing about it is there's me, I'm Catholic, born a Catholic. There's another guy, he's Jewish, he's got a son still in there, and a Muslim, believe it or not. He's got family in there. It didn't matter to them on that day whether you were a Catholic, a Jew, or a Muslim, in fact. They killed whoever they could get hold of. Whoever they could get hold of, it didn't matter. They were just on a killing spree. There was no ideology in it. Raping women, as you know, and men. Animals. Worse than animals. I love animals.
Right, exactly.
Evil. A word needs to be invented for this, just like the Holocaust. A new word has to be invented for that. I don't even like, personally, I don't like the word anti-Semitism used by anyone. It's too flowery. A lot of people don't even know what anti-Semitism means. If you ask them, what's an anti-Semite? Oh, I don't know. Is it like an anti-pasta? It's a very soft, flowery word. Jew hatred. Jew hatred. That should be the word used. It's nothing. It's anti-Semitism. What does that mean to anybody? Use the hard words. It's Jew hatred. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, we're going to follow your lead on that, Thomas, because it's true. The word just isn't strong enough and harsh enough. So we're going to follow your lead on that. And thank you for joining us today. We know how busy you are, and please give Emily our best. And we hope when you're back and you're settled in, we can Zoom up together with you and Emily. So again, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Our next move is to a kibbutz in the south called Salim. It's actually an Air Force base as well, so we're going to be well protected. It's in the south. That's our next move until Kibbutz Be'eri is built up again, which is going to take some years. And then we will move from this kibbutz who are going to make an add-on, we will move en masse back to Be'eri.
Well, we'll be there with
And
you.
that's our hope and plans.
We're going to be helping to rebuild the South, and we'll be with you every step of the way. So we'll plan on rejoining you in happier days. So thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye. We now welcome Israeli Defense Forces International Spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht. Lieutenant Colonel Hecht has been all over the international news since October 7th, and he's even manages the IDF's Substack, which features field notes, including updates on breaking news, deep dives on everything from tactics to tech, and the occasional reference to Glasgow Rangers. Lieutenant Colonel Hecht, we're honored to have you with us today. Please give us some of your words.
Hello, dear friends from JNF. I hope you can all hear me loud and clear. I think the last time I saw you, I was standing in a junction outside of Gaza during the Ramadan. We were under a barrage. Who would have believed what we've gone through since that point in time? I think I'm going to share with you, because I'm sure that everybody here is well read, more or less, into the situation. I want to actually share some. I briefed journalists last night on some reflections, so I might share a few visuals. But just to give you a quick update, what's happening on the ground right now, and I think what we all understand at this point, there's going to be no Iwo Jima picture here. This is, everybody's expecting a quick victory. There's a famous Arab saying, you have watches and we have time. And Israel, there's been a moment of reckoning here in Israel. We understand this is going to be long. It's going to take, there's going to be formations of this. It could stop, it could go back, there could be a deal, it couldn't be a deal. We are going to dismantle Hamas. And I've been following the New York Times. There's people that are saying, Israel's not strong enough. We're going to go all the way as long as it takes. And I was in the weekend last Saturday in Khan Yunis with CNN and ABC. I don't know if you saw Jeremy Diamond and Matt Goodman's pieces. It was very challenging, by the way. We wanted to show them that there was a tunnel under a graveyard. I don't know if any of you saw that piece. CNN, of course, don't give us an easy time. But the determination of the soldiers is amazing. I mean, there's the commander of that division who is now fighting in Khan Yunis, General Dan Goldfuss. He's on the ground and he's working meticulously under very harsh conditions. And again, it's a multi-dimensional fight. It's above ground, it's underground, and there's drones, and there's no glamour pictures here. And it's a very meticulous, long slog, and it's going to go as long as it needs to go. So our 98th Division right now is the main effort. It's happening in the south of Gaza. It's a more surgical operation. It's not like we did in the north. And they're going house to house, tunnel to tunnel, because we have to make sure that the infrastructure is gone. And Khan Yunis is also a bastion. It's a symbol of the Sinwar family. There's some challenges there because a lot of the people that moved from the north are there. We're fighting in a very, very complex environment. There's a certain level of sensitivity also with the Egyptians. When you look south, there's Rafia. I assume you all know your geography. The phenomena of the border with Egypt is a very sensitive one. Why? Because we need the Rafah crossing open for the humanitarian aid, and we're slowly dismantling their infrastructure. Just last night, we announced that we've been flooding some of the tunnels with seawater. And again, also in the north, we have another division in the north, the 162 Division, with infantry that did some raids in the north, and they're still fighting pockets of Hamas, of insurgents. Very, very challenging fight. Our focus is to keep our eyes on the ball with Hamas. And the north, we're watching it closely. We're preparing our readiness. And we're hoping that Nasrallah doesn't make a mistake. We're hoping that Nasrallah doesn't make a mistake, because if he makes that mistake, he will be pulverized and Lebanon will pay the price. Now, these are sound bites that you're all, when you're talking about the messaging that we are putting out to the world, these are very important messaging. We're saying the same thing to the administration. You know, there's people that 80,000, there's thousands and thousands of Israelis that are not in their homes right now in the north. It's a massive challenge. I'd like to share with you, if you could allow me to share screen. I did a sort of reflection, and then I'll open up for questions on two defining moments that I wanted to share from you, from some things that happened up till now. If you can allow me to share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
When this thing started, and this is, you know, I as someone who looks, and I'm, you know, I'm a history buff, and when this thing started, after being 2 years in my job and understanding our very hard position with the international media, who don't believe us in general, they like to see Jews when we're weak. I understood that I had to do what Eisenhower did in Bergen-Belsen, because I knew that no one would believe us, and the world has forgot. And I took 100, and again on the 8th already, on the 9th, 2,000 journalists flew into Israel. They came in through Amman, everywhere. And we just went into Kfar Aza to see the carnage. I think that was probably the most important thing I did in the war. Everything else is textbook. But the fact that we took these journalists, Nick Robertson, Clarissa Ward, all the people who are now criticizing us, and they saw it in their own eyes. They saw the carnage, they saw the bodies, without a privileged white man like myself standing and animating it. They saw it untouched. It was a very important move, and I genuinely believe that it affected the president's speech on Wednesday that week. And to me, that was a very important thing that we did. It's something that I've been trying to amplify since. The second thing, and then I'll open it up to questions, is I don't know if you all remember, but on the evening of the 7th, Muhammad Def came out of the darkness, the sort of mystical Hamas villain. We hadn't seen his face in years. And he called the Arab world, and after that horrible day, we were, in a sense, overrun, which is I always use that when I talk to my American brothers in the military, because that touches a very sensitive spot for the American military. I mean, we were overrun in Gaza. It was a failure. And there was a sense when Muhammad Def came out that evening and said, and call the Arab world to join us. The Jews are on their knees. To join us in storming Al-Aqsa and storming the Jews. And that evening, also Hezbollah fired rockets. We were speaking to the American military and the administration. I've also been corresponding with, say, even John Kirby. The fact that the administration came out that evening and sent the carrier group, beginning with the Ford and after that the Eisenhower, it was a moment of friendship, truth, and reckoning, and understanding that a real moment of friendship between our countries. So I wanted to share that with you. My branch, the efforts that we're doing, also on visual. Everything is about footage in this war. It's a footage war, and that's why I have to take journalists inside to see it. And of course, the 47-minute movie, which we did also, which is a dilemma, how to handle that. It's not something we do as a Jewish nation, show carnage and bodies like Hamas. But this is not just me, that's my powerhouse of soldiers. You see some familiar faces here, Conricus and Scheffler and Doron Spielman and Levi Weiss, reservists that are part of our team. with a massive responsibility for Israel and the Jewish nation. That's just to give you a glimpse. Maybe I'll open up for some questions and comments. Thank you very much again for having me.
So, Lieutenant Colonel, it's been asked over and over again. What is your opinion on the status of the hostage negotiations?
As I said before, as a military man, I know that there's people at the highest levels of government handling this. And I also read the New York Times piece that tried to dismantle and say, you have to stop the war to get back the hostages. Our eyes are on the ball. We are going to maintain the military pressure, and I'm going to let the diplomats and the political sphere bring a deal. But if we stop, there'll be a price that we'll pay in the long run.
Yeah. And, what's the status with Egypt? Would they ever, or why don't they, or would they ever open their borders to the Gazan people that live in Gaza?
I would not. I nearly got into trouble when I was asked at the beginning of the war. I got into trouble with the government when I was asked, okay, what about people were asking me, how can we get in? Because they ransacked the Erez crossing, which was a crossing that they were coming in to work from Israel, more and more people. And I said, okay, maybe they can come in through Egypt. And Egypt is very sensitive. So they don't want the Palestinians either, believe me. But please keep that in-house.
And what can you comment on the destruction of the tunnel network? What's the status of that?
So we're working on the tunnels. There's the tunnel city in Gaza is bigger than the London Tube. We're dismantling with explosives, and we're trying to dismantle as much as we can. And it's going to take time. It is going to take time. We've done a lot in the north. We're doing now in the south. I've walked these tunnels. It's overwhelming to be down there. They've built these things for 16 years. When people try and compare it to Mosul and Fallujah, it's even a bit more difficult because they've been preparing this town for years since they took control. The infrastructure the magnitude of it is overwhelming. It's going to take time. I'm seeing the comments. I'm seeing a lot of the things in the chat. The good old Hasbara comments that we're losing the narrative. Yeah, it's very challenging. People, what we're doing right now in Gaza is very, very hard because they're hiding within their population. They're moving around already. They're not wearing their uniform like they did when they came in. They're moving around like civilians. They're moving around south. When we open these humanitarian corridors, we are not them. So and there's so much guns and RPGs. They can leave in the humanitarian corridor, walk into a house, take an RPG under a baby's bed, and fire it at the forces. That's classic insurgency.
There's another question that's come up periodically, and that is, as you destroy these tunnels, how do you know where the hostages, if they're being kept in tunnels, what tunnels are they being kept in, and how do you avoid causing harm to those tunnels?
We have advanced intelligence on where they are. We're making massive efforts. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. But when we know that there'll be hostages somewhere, we'll avoid from attacking that location. Again, and there's been some mistakes, which you witnessed that tragic event with our 3 hostages that managed to escape. It was horrible. Israel right now, people come across and say, okay, they ask us questions. Israel right now is traumatized. I don't know if there's anyone physically right now in Israel, but the level of trauma and reckoning and fear within the Israeli public is overwhelming right now. So right now we're so much focused on just eliminating this threat, eliminating.
And this question comes up a lot. Also, is the Red Cross? What we hear is that the Red Cross requested to go visit the hostages, and Hamas says no, and that's the end of it. So, what's the relationship between Israel and the Red Cross?
So the Red Cross, I'm going to send everybody here something, because I see a lot of questions that people don't know where our content is. The Red Cross is an entity that we're working with. They visited here. We have a lot of criticism on them. They're doing their best. They're doing their best, but the relationship is being handled not by the IDF. It's held by the Ministry of Defense. Listen, they're doing what they can. They brought some of our hostages home, but they're very limited inside Gaza. You're also seeing all the things about UNRWA right now. I'm very careful in criticizing these organizations because the reality inside Gaza is very, very challenging.
And we hear a lot about that they don't have food in Gaza, they don't have water, they don't have medical needs. I mean, how it's so hard to trust the media at sometimes. How true is that they really don't have food, they don't have water or health care?
So it's very challenging. Even the humanitarian assistance that we're putting in, it's being moved. It's been moved up to the north. Some of it, these trucks are being, hijacked by Hamas. So it's so complicated.
And what can you tell us? What can we do here in the United States from a social media or otherwise? So, what more can we do?
So I'm saying to everybody here, listen, I just sent you a link tree of all the content that we put out, and we're in a constant fight to fight fake news, to show the IDF narrative. Please help us distribute this content. Retweet, share, look at it. I ask you. And the biggest challenge that we have with the Americans, I'm looking at the age group here, that most of you are over 45, probably. I see some young faces here. But we're losing the youngsters, even your kids.
Just to let you know that, yes, during the day, live, there's people that are joining this Zoom, or those that have the ability to join during the day. But you should know that we repost this at night, and the Zoom is watched by thousands of people, and the demographic of a lot of those people at night are a younger generation who don't have the freedom during the day at work to just join a Zoom. So you should know that we do reach out. Our largest growing demographic at Jewish National Fund USA is what we call our futures. That's age 22 to 40, the largest growing demographic. And that's a good portion of who watches these repeats at night. So your Zoom will be shared. We will make sure to distribute it amongst our base. We thank you for taking your time. We know how busy you are. And, we hope we can call on you in the future.
It'd be my pleasure always. Thank you very much for your friendship and devotion to the state of Israel.
Thank you. So if there was ever a word to describe our people, resilient is that word. In the face of total darkness, we find the light. Against all odds, we thrive. In moments of despair, we hope, and we continue to choose life. JNF-USA's Resilience Campaign has been supporting our family in Israel since the dark day of October 7th, but it was not an emergency campaign meant only to address the crisis of that day, rather to focus on tomorrow when repair and return to growth and prosperity for the Israel envelope. Over the last month, JNF-USA has already begun the work on rehabilitating various communities in the South to allow residents to return to their homes and move forward with their lives. We have mapped the communities with returning residents, and we have identified the needs of these people. In the Eshkol region, we are working with the communities of Mitrachim, Sohar, Gvulot, and in Gvulot, we created a temporary school for the children of the Eshkol region, easing the transition home for families. Together with professionals, our volunteer missions help to clean, beautify, and rehabilitate these areas. In the Shara Negev region, we have started to rehabilitate the communities of Or Haner, Erez, and Bror Chayil. Our professionals and volunteers are collaborating with these communities as well. In just a few days, sounds of children learning in classrooms will be heard in the temporary schools of these regions. And with this, we are expecting the return of thousands of residents to their homes. Thank you for continuing to make this possible and for strengthening the people of Israel. Visit jnf.org/support-Israel to learn more and contribute. And don't forget to visit jnf.org/volunteer-IL to sign up for one of our upcoming missions. We are sold out through March, but you can join us through August on one of these life-changing experiences. Our next weekly briefing will be 1 week from today, Wednesday, February 7th, at this time, at the same Zoom address. I'm Israel Chai.